Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to yet another show of 4th and 62. My name is John Friedman. We have an esteemed special guest here today, Sean McAdam from Mass Live. Also, our usual cast of characters, Coach Bob Paraso.
Good afternoon.
And coming to you live from his palatial estate somewhere in Connecticut is cousin Stephen.
Hey, everybody.
Okay, and with Sean here, we really thought we'd talk mostly baseball.
Sure, let's get to it.
So I have a first question for you.
Okay,
and I'm just going to say his name, Pete Rose, because all of a sudden, he died a couple years ago, but he's back in the news again.
Yeah, he is, and it looks like Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, is going to rule on his potential reinstatement in the coming days, weeks. Just earlier this week at a gathering of the Associated Press with some reporters and sports editors throughout the country, he was asked about it. Said he had talked to President Trump about what he was going to do. Didn't tip his hat one way or the other, which way he might be going, but. If you want to, I speak from experience, if you want to stir up discussion among sports fans, you can always get people going with Pete Rose. People don't seem to come down in the middle on him. You're either pro Pete Rose or anti Pete Rose, and everyone's got an opinion, and we'll see where this goes. I myself am of the belief that Pete Rose should remain banned from baseball. I would not want him to be inducted as an individual in Cooperstown. His feats and accomplishments are represented already in the hall. People understand how great a player he was, for his longevity, for his hustle, all of that. But to me, betting on the game, whether for or against your own team, is the third rail of professional sports. And once you touch that, I'm done with you.
I can understand.
Sean, I totally agree with you, Sean. And also, isn't there a committee there to have to approve it, even if the commissioner says, let's go forward with this?
Well, he could. The commissioner has the power to reinstate him posthumously, of course, so that he is no longer technically ineligible for consideration for the Hall of Fame. He would never be placed on the Baseball Writers Association of America's ballot because he obviously long ago had his eligibility expire. The clock starts ticking as soon as you are 5 years removed from the end of your playing career, and now you are eligible to be on the ballot for as many as 10 years. Obviously, Rose played his last game in the 80s. That is long past due. So any consideration that would come for him in terms of his admission and election to the Hall of Fame would have to be one of the so-called era committees, so what used to be called the Veterans Committee. And those are made up of mostly retired players, a few executives and historians, and they would need to support him by a percentage of 75% or more, as they do for all era committee candidates now. And I don't see that happening. I don't. There's been this theory that with a younger electorate now on the Baseball Writers Association of America ballot, that maybe he would be forgiven, or they would look at him a little differently. That's kind of irrelevant because, as I said, he's not eligible for that ballot. But knowing how retired players feel about those who, A, were linked to PEDs and also the gambling issue, I have a hard time believing that Rose's name will ever be voted. I'm not sure he's going to be ever considered. If he is considered, I don't think he'll be elected.
I can understand that. What muddies the waters a little bit is now Red Sox, Patriots, Celtics, every sports team is sponsored by DraftKings or something else.
True.
And sports gambling has become, I think, a little bit of a detriment that clouds the Rose issue. However, I agree with you. back in the day, every clubhouse said, "You bet you're gone."
And still.
Right.
And those rules are still posted. And Bob, I hear that argument. Well, now that baseball is in bed with all these gambling businesses and their sponsors, and you see them on outfield billboards, and they sponsor teams' local telecasts. But one thing hasn't changed. If you are associated with the game, you cannot gamble on its outcome. That doesn't matter if sports gambling has been made legal by the states through the Supreme Court, or whether 40 or 50 years ago when Rose was still playing, it was prohibited. To me, the fact that you have a participant in the game, be it as a player, manager, or in Rose's case, a player manager, with the power to influence the outcome, gambling on that outcome, that's a whole separate issue. Baseball does not do itself any favors, I agree, with its association with a lot of these gambling companies. To me, it does not change the basics that somebody involved in the on-field product cannot ever bet on the outcome of that. Once fans begin to question the validity of the outcome, whether they question, is this on the up and up? Am I really seeing competition here? Or is this predetermined because of someone's financial influence? You've lost everything that sports has to offer, in my opinion. You have to be beyond reproach when it comes to involving yourself in any gambling concerns. He knew that just as any player knows it. Right. And by the way, those posters and those warnings in clubhouses are in English, Spanish, and Japanese, and probably Korean too, now that we have players from all over the world participating in Major League Baseball. So there can be no suggestion that I didn't know, I didn't understand, nobody told me. That is unchanged, regardless of how sports gambling has become this cottage industry that is in many ways pumping money into the game itself.
Right. Okay.
And, Bart Giamatti gave him every chance to admit his guilt and show some contrition. And Rose said, no way, I didn't do anything wrong. So he had his chance.
Many times over. And the only time where he finally acquiesced and conceded that he had been involved was when there was money to be made from writing a book. And, to me, while you can admire Rose, the player, on the field and the intensity with which he played and his commitment to winning and his competitiveness, I've spoken to Terry Francona about him often because Terry Francona played for him as a young player and thought that Pete Rose walked on water within the confines of the ballpark and the clubhouse. But off the field, there's really not a lot to admire there. Right. In addition to the gambling, there are credible accusations of statutory rape that were investigated and frankly went nowhere because the statute of limitations had expired. He's not and was not a very admirable person, right, even if you admire the way he played the game and how well he played it.
And he just, and I think it showed with Bart Giamatti, and it showed everyone until he died. He was a jerk.
Yeah.
He was a jerk.
Yep. I sadly, as a person,
I'd use another word.
I can think of, I got a few of them. As a person, there was very little that was admirable about him.
Okay. I'm sorry to ask about Pete Rose.
That's
but
okay.
That was the first thing on my head.
That's okay.
So I'm going to throw another name at you now.
Okay.
Roman Anthony. Is he everything that we read about?
I believe he can be. Yes, he's enormously talented. People whose opinion I respect greatly. I was watching the Nesson telecast last night. I don't know if you saw the pregame show. But former Toronto Blue Jays general manager and longtime baseball executive J.P. Ricciardi says that Anthony has the potential to be one of the greatest Red Sox players in the team's history. And this is somebody who has spent almost 40 years in the game. Yeah. Just not trying to hype the kid up, not trying to, increase expectations for him, but from a talent evaluation standpoint, that's how impressed JP is with him. And he's a guy that has broadcast a lot of games at Polar Park of the Worcester Red Sox, has seen him a lot. And I respect JP's evaluation skills. And he was a scout, an assistant general manager, a general manager. He played professionally in the minor leagues. He's widely respected. And I cite him just because that's the more recent rave that I've heard. There are others. I think he, to me, the guy, if people are looking for a modern day comp, I would say the best one is probably Kyle Tucker of the Chicago Cubs, who was, as we know, an excellent player who was traded by Houston to Chicago last winter, is having a MVP caliber season with his new team. Lefty hitter, plus base runner, plus athlete in the field. It does seem as though the sky's the limit here. All they got to do is figure out how they're going to get him into the lineup, which right now there doesn't seem to be an obvious spot. So we'll see. I mean, obviously he's not going to spend the whole year there, whether it's a minor injury that happens to someone on the major league club that provides that opening, or there's a performance issue, say that Cedon Rafaela struggles offensively. There's your opening where either you move Duran over to center and put Anthony in left, or you keep Duran in left and put Anthony in center. They could go either way on that, but that would seem to be the most obvious likely scenario. But you never can tell what's going to happen with injuries, with performance, or even with trades. It may be that the Red Sox find themselves, Roman Anthony is still at AAA in July. The trade deadline rolls around and the Red Sox figure we need another starting pitcher, or we need a closer because Aroldis Chapman hasn't pitched well of late. You may end up trading one of those outfielders. So that could create an opening. You can't tell, but I think everybody that I've spoken to just thinks the world of this guy and thinks he's going to be an elite major league player.
And I don't mean to pick on you, obviously not, but he's not even a guy, he's a kid.
Yeah, he's 20 years old.
20 years old.
Right. I mean, and that's why I think, there's no damage in having him continue his development in Worcester for a while. Now, if it gets to be August and September, then people are going to be saying, well, what are we doing here? How much more does he have to prove at the minor league level? But we're not there yet. In fact, I spoke to Brian Abraham, the Red Sox, essentially their farm director of player development. He was on our Mass Live podcast yesterday, and he said, we were trying to kind of pin him down. What does he need to do better? And the one thing is pull the ball more. He's shown the ability to take the ball the other way, which always comes in handy if you're a left-handed hitter at Fenway. You can think of Wade Boggs, you can think of David Ortiz, you can think of Fred Lynn.
Ted Williams.
Ted Williams was kind of stubborn and insisted on pulling just about everything. But many of the left-handed hitters who have thrived there have learned to kind of, use that wall to pepper it and get a lot of doubles. And Anthony has the ability to do that, but they'd also like to see him show the ability to pull the ball a little bit more. So there's always something that you can work on. There's always a skill that can be sharpened or improved. And that's why, especially as you noted, 20 years old, it's kind of what's the rush?
Yeah.
But, we had Tony C. 20 years old.
Right, not even. He was a teenager when he made his debut in '64. So
it'll be interesting to see who becomes Wally Pipp in the outfield.
Yeah, that's right.
You never know.
Do you think maybe they signed Rafaela a little prematurely?
I don't, because those deals that get signed by Campbell this year, by Bayo and Anthony last year, almost never blow up for the team because of the relative affordability of these deals. It gives the player involved a little security so that these guys, no matter what happened, injuries, not meeting expectation, they've got $50 to $60 million guaranteed, and they're set for life. For the teams, they have some cost control and stability. They don't have to worry about going through arbitration with these players. But most of these deals that get signed end up having an average annual value of somewhere between $7 and $8 million.
That's short money,
Now,
right?
if Ceddanne Rafaela is only an elite defender, a versatile player who can contribute in the infield and steal bases, and you're stuck paying him $7.5 million 3-4 years down the road, that's not going to croak a team like the Red Sox. It isn't, I think people see $50 or $60 million, but you have to remember these are 7, 8, 9 year long deals, so that it averages out to be somewhere between $7 and $8 million a year, and that's how it gets calculated for luxury tax purposes. So, even if he is not an everyday player going forward because he can't get on base, he can't be patient enough, you still have an excellent fourth outfielder that you can use in the late innings, who can contribute in the infield and play second or short, who can steal a base for you, who can play a couple of weeks if somebody has a short-term injury. So there really is very little downside to those kind of deals, even for the teams.
So I think I hear you saying, Sean, that they can actually take Rafaela and use him as a utility player and bring Anthony up as a starter if that's what they decide to do.
That's one path. Another would be to, use him in a deal at some point to help address another roster need that you have. But yeah, in a sort of worst case scenario, even if he fails to become an everyday player, there's still value there with the skills he brings with his glove, his arm, and his legs.
And his contract is not going to affect his trade value?
No, there would be there would be no team that would that would reject a proposed deal because they might end up owing somebody $40 million or whatever. And if it were to be an impediment, the Red Sox could easily take some of that back to facilitate a trade.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Cool.
It's been interesting. The last maybe 3 games, Tristan Casas has showed signs of kind of coming out of it.
Mm-hmm.
At least he's hitting the ball.
Right.
He's hitting line drives. He still only has 2 homer or 3 homer.
2, I think.
Maybe.
Yep.
But what's 3 homers?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Bob. What about Yoshida?
Yeah, that's kind of a mystery. And as we record this, Yoshida is going to be coming back to Boston to be examined by the medical staff because he has kind of hit a wall in his recovery from shoulder surgery that he underwent last October. There had been this agreement that he would not, I think a lot of people saw him playing games in spring training and then start the year on the IL and said, well, what's this? This seems like there's something going on here. But he was limited to being a DH in the spring.
He couldn't see the field.
Right. So the at-bats were fine, but he was not being asked to play the outfield and not being asked to throw. Now that they have asked him that, he's kind of hit a wall in terms of his ability to throw, to long toss, to throw the ball from a distance of about 120 feet, to the point where he hasn't progressed enough for them to activate him and begin a rehab assignment. And once that happens, they only have 20 days. And when that 20 days is up, they have to either put him on the major league roster or determine if there's more time needed for him to recover. But it's to the point now where his shoulder is not strong enough to undergo and be able to deal with playing the outfield, which is what they want. They want the ability, unlike last year when he played exactly 1 inning in the outfield and then never did again. They don't want him to be a hitter only, because when you only have 4 depth players on your bench,
right,
you got to make sure that all of them can contribute in a number of ways. and having him limited to hitting only is not going to help them from a roster management standpoint. So I suspect we'll know more by the end of the week, but it's certainly not a good sign that 7 months after the surgery, he's not fully recovered yet, and they're afraid that there may be some other issue here. So until that gets determined, we won't know, but it's clear we're not going to see Masataka Yoshida in a major league game for some time at this point.
Okay, that could be a career ender?
Too soon to tell, Bob. As I said, concerning given that he underwent the surgery in October. He did it almost as soon as the season ended. The expectation was that he was going to be ready for opening day. He clearly was not. And worse, a month in, he's not close to being ready. So it could be something that needs to be cleaned up. It could be just some rest and rehab is necessary, but we'll know more by the end of the week.
Because Alex made the comment early in spring training and early in the season that he's probably one of the better hitters on the team. He likes his swing, so on and so forth. So trade bait as a DH for somebody else?
I can't think that they would be able to move him at this point. He is due about $54 million on the remainder of his deal. And remember, while he is a gifted hitter in terms of bat to ball and the ability to put the ball in play, he's not a good outfielder.
Right.
He can't throw well. He doesn't run well. And even though he can hit, he's not a power guy. And that's what, if you're talking about somebody who's going to be a full-time DH, usually you expect run production. Yeah. He's a singles and doubles guy. He's going to hit a lot of line drives. We saw him hit 15 homers, I think, 2 years ago. So he'll run into a few, but it is a limited offensive profile. He's slow, not a lot of power, and not a good defender. So if he's not helping you by hitting line drives and singles and doubles, then he's not helping you at all.
Other than that, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Other than that, he's a Hall of Famer.
It's a good signing.
Right. He belongs on the bench of the Red Sox. That's great. Hey, Sean, I got a quick question. I want to go back to Casas for a second. Have you had the chance to interview him? Because, as a fan, we don't know these guys. And you watch his approach to the plate, and he's just always like thinking. I'm wondering if he's talking to his bat or what's going on. But my note is is he a head case? What's going on with him?
He's different. I will say that. He clearly enjoys, I think, being that unique personality. I think he revels in the fact that people like you and other fans are trying to figure out what's going on. You've probably seen him practicing yoga on the field. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Bless you.
You've probably seen him, sunbathing or at least video of him sunbathing out in right field on the afternoon.
I've missed that.
Well, it's really something you should check out. So, as I said, the best way to describe him is different.
If he hits 30 home runs, nobody's going to care.
Exactly.
But he's not there yet.
But if you're not, then people are going to look a little askance at your personality and some of the strange things that come out of his mouth. Yes, to answer your question, I've interviewed him and talked to him many, many times. He can be engaging, he can be entertaining, and he can occasionally be enraging because he just not because he's very quotable. We like that in my business, It's good to have guys who aren't cookie cutter and sound like they're not Nuke LaLoosh from Bull Durham, where they're just reading the cliches off the note card. We encourage personality, but if you'll recall, when he had the rib injury last year, he kept telling us, well, I took 75 swings yesterday and I'm feeling better. And every day or every couple of days, we would get this update from him. Oh, I took 100 swings today. And then it came time for him to almost be go on a rehab assignment or be activated. And he said, well, those were not real swings. They were in my head. So, when you're dealing with somebody who plays fast and loose with the truth and isn't worried about whether he's pulling your chain that's where it gets a little dicey.
Now you can see that on that Netflix show that you very prominently
Yes,
here.
I've heard that.
It's
I've
very nice.
in that quite a bit.
right,
Yes.
but Cassis does come out as a real head case.
Yeah.
He's like Bill Lee on steroids.
Yep. That's not a bad comparison. I've told people, they said, "What's he like?" And I said, he should be from Southern California.
Yes.
He's not.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
from South Florida, but he very much behaves like a surfer dude from Orange County. That's kind of his vibe.
Yeah. And that one scene when Duran is fixing his truck,
Right.
right, calling his father, "What do I do?" And Cassis is saying, "Don't put your hand in there. What are you doing?"
Yeah, you're playing with the moneymaker there. Don't risk injury to
Right.
fix your car.
Right.
Well, we as the clock on the wall says, we're coming near the end of the show already. Told you it would fly by.
I taught my answers were too long, which I've
No.
been told many times.
No.
No,
Your answers
no.
were great. Thank you for being here.
Finally, we got somebody on the show who knows something, so that's good.
Yeah, better than the three of us.
Oh, absolutely.
The other thing we were going to talk about was the Patriots draft.
Yep.
But we'll have to wait till next time when you're not here, unless you want to. There's something you want to say.
Well, look, on paper, and that's all this is. I kind of get a kick out of people assigning grades to drafts before anybody has put pads and cleats on. But it does seem as though they got some talented guys at positions of need. They obviously needed to upgrade the offensive line. They did that with Campbell. They got themselves a pretty versatile and talented running back. The kid Williams from Washington State.
Big Ohio State.
Ohio State, the Ohio
Oh,
State.
that's right. Yes, I forgot your connection there. And the wide receiver from Washington State. So, some guys that can help. I think they did a good job in free agency with some on the defensive side of the ball, and then the draft seemed to be more about, addressing the offensive needs. So we'll know more in September and then again in January how well, but for now, on paper, it looks like they did a decent job with the draft.
Yeah, that receiver from Washington State can run like a deer.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I go all the way back to 2 years ago when they had
Javon
Polk,
Baker.
Polk and Baker,
my boy
yeah.
Polk,
Your boy Polk.
from Washington. I said, "Oh, this kid's going to be great." He couldn't catch cold.
Yeah, he had one catch, I think, right? On the last, he finally made a catch in the last week of the season when nobody wanted him to, and they should have lost to get the number 2 or number 3
Yeah, we all
pick
wanted
instead of
him to
number
drop
4.
that ball.
Right,
Yeah, you're
right.
absolutely right.
Hey, before we go, everybody has seen Dalton Varsho's catch
Yes,
from last night.
that was remarkable. Talk
That
about
was
a nice
incredible.
recovery. He stumbled, kind of lost track of the ball, and then stuck his
glove out.
arm out backhanded and made the catch literally behind his back. Varsho's a great outfielder.
Yeah.
I would have said that before last night. He and when you look at some of the defensive metrics, he is always near the top of any outfielder in the game. But that one really separated itself.
He got a bigger kick out of it than anybody.
Yeah, even he understood that he got a little lucky, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, John, I think Oz is falling asleep up there, but we'll
No. I'm sure the music will come on any second.
Okay.
But I want to thank Sean McAdam from Mass Live for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for
thank
having
you
me,
very
guys.
much.
I enjoyed it.
Thanks,
On
Sean.
behalf of Coach Bob Paraso and Cousin Steven, my name is John Friedman. Thank you once again for joining us here on 4th and 62.
Another brilliant
care.
show.
Hi, everybody.